better watch that shit because it's gon' go hard. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Vincent Vincente here on the wrong format. Now popping out to you in full screen. What's up? It's Friday. That means it's time for another edition of the Ghost Files. Thank you for tuning in with us for another week. Bunch of people hopping in the comments early. I see Allie Girl there who joined me last night with the chat with my friends over at the Toy Addict, which was a lot of fun. And she won a prize, which was really cool. Undead, good to see you there. Modding the chat, doing a great job. Sam Haynes Knight, what's up? Blue Wolf, Gap After Dark. Look at all these people hanging out. Look at Lamontre hanging out. What's up, everybody? Steak Juicy Swab, Dale Summer. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the only place to hang out on a Friday night when you got nothing better to do and talk about some Friday the 13th. That's right. Tonight we're going to talk about this film you may have heard of, that you may have heard that I like. I was talking to my guest right before we got started, and we were sort of saying it's a pretty good time to be a Friday the 13th fan. After the fan film boom, there are actually a lot of Friday the 13th things to look forward in the coming years, despite all the speculation as far as, where are the rights right now and what is going on across the board. But when I sat down to think about it after the table read last week, I started to realize that going back through some of the news, there's a lot of announcements that are going to come out this year. And if there's one person that I would want to talk to about those announcements, it would be my friend Jason Parker at Friday the 13th franchise. He's going to be on the show tonight. I also have a good friend of mine, James Sweet, who will be joining me from the good fan film Jason Rising. And obviously he was on the table read last week. I'll be bringing him on in a minute to talk about it. We were going to have VFX award-winning filmmaker Karl Whinnery, but he got a little bit of the bubble guts tonight and he will not be able to join us. He will be having a date with some hot brown rain instead. So without any further ado, let me bring out my two good friends, switching this format, going here, going there. What's up, James? What's up, Jason? How you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me tonight.
James is just cracking up because I'm roasting Karl. He is in the background right now. We are going to take care of that. I do shout out to StreamYard, even though they aren't sponsoring me. I pay them handsomely for these controls, but switching the background and all that. But welcome. Let's see. Officially, welcome. There we go. Look at that. James, how you doing tonight? It's good to see you, buddy.
I am doing great. It's Friday, and it's good weather out here in the Pacific Northwest, so that's always we enjoy that when we see the sun every so often.
Nice.
And,
this is your week of sun this week?
Yeah, pretty much.
Great.
But
great job on the I was gonna say great job on the table read last week. That was a lot of fun. It's good to have you back. Always good to have you. I wish Karl was here, but next time we'll get him in. And then Jason, how you doing?
Doing good. I was in a bunch of Teams meetings for work all day, so I'm sliding right into pretty much another Teams meeting type of thing. So, but this will be much more interesting to have discussions about. That's for sure.
Very, very much. You got quite the Friday the 13th background. I've never seen a Ralph head before. That is amazing.
I cannot remember who the artist was who made that. It's been 12 years since I got that, but he made a limited run. I think he only ended up making maybe 10 and kind of disappeared. And so, yeah, I got something unique for sure.
Cool. So tonight, the first thing I want to talk about is your neck of the woods, the Friday the 13th franchise website. And as we were discussing before we got started, it's actually going to start to be a pretty busy time for you. But what has it been like, over the last couple of years trying to sort of keep fandom engaged, through a series of, bad news and drought? Like, what has that been like?
Well, when I first started the site, we were coming right off of the 2009 film. So you had a lot of stuff going on there. They were supposed to make a sequel in 2010. Mm-hmm. There were, you still at that point, we're still coming off the Crystal Lake Memories book from a few years before that. You had comic books coming out. You still had the books that were kind of nearing their end. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. You had the Crystal Lake Memories doc that kind of pushed us into the middle of the 2010s. a lot of things like that kind of kept the site moving with a lot of news. Of course, when they were supposed to film the movie in 2017, that was big. I was about like this close to getting everything booked to go down to where they were filming in one of the towns that they were supposed to film in. And so when they announced that, that was a big bummer. And really since then, it's been pretty difficult. But you try to engage everybody on social media, especially I even put a poll out, maybe a few months ago, literally asking, what do you guys want to see right now? Because there just isn't a lot. And I'm starting to see that a lot of people, even older school fans from when these movies first started coming out, they're really wanting new stuff. Like the old stuff has kind of been retread. We've been over it. Most everybody who are really good fans or big fans of these movies, they've read the books, they've read or seen the documentaries, they know the behind the scenes. And so it's difficult, but like you said, it's going to change, and hopefully very soon. And there's some really big things coming out. But the site has been busier. Let's put it that way.
I definitely noticed, and I think anyone who follows us on Twitter or any accounts, we're usually resharing a lot of what you're saying, trying to echo that out. James, when you back before we met, you were just a little seedling of a Friday the 13th fan. Did you come up with websites and seeing were you on the website, or how did you get engaged with it?
I when I started it, it was just what I remember as a kid from the love of Friday the 13th for me. I was so out of the loop of all of that stuff until I got the wind up my butt to start making a Friday the 13th fan film. I mean, there were things that I wasn't aware of, like the hockey mask creators that are out there now. Like when I was a kid, you had a small paper ad to cut out to mail order this very cheap plastic one for $35 out of the back of Fangoria or Gorezone or whatever. And that's what I did. And that was an exciting day when you get a hockey mask like that. But these days they're so exact. And there's so many people that are making props and things like that I didn't even know about. So I was kind of out of the loop, but I got to see a lot of new things, and, obviously engaging with Friday the 13th franchise was, very cool to see all this stuff.
So to keep moving things right along, the first thing I'm going to bring up for tonight's discussion is films, because it's sort of the one that seems, as I think it's the one most people want, but also the one that sort of is the furthest away in a sense, because the rights in that realm are where they're most fuzzy. And most of the rights are being used up, I think, by the TV show right now. So there's some overlap, and I think that there's some stuff going on. I'm not sure if the films are allowed to come out or what they're doing, but I was actually going to throw some of this to our viewers about, let's talk about each of us, what we think or what we would hope for something to come into the theater, what we really want. And then I'd really like to hear from, all the viewers. If you want to, jump in with a chat, if you want to do a super chat, so I see it right away, support the channel. Remember, we got links in the base to support the channel. We want to hear what do you want to see from a Friday the 13th film, knowing that, we got a TV show coming out that's mostly going to cover Pamela and look backwards and really kind of go in that realm. What are we looking for in a film here? And Jason, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
I have a lot of ideas. I do. Probably a lot of what I might want to have in a new movie may not be the most popular with most of the fans, but I'm all about trying to do some new things, get into some new ground. Over the years, I've had ideas. One of the ones I always thought would be really cool, and you could do it found footage or not, take your pick, I don't care, but is where you have some investigative journalists who catch wind of this town that kind of doesn't really exist anymore, not really on the map, and they go in search of Crystal Lake, and it's completely boarded up, and you can't even get in through the roads. It's all boarded up, everything, So they sneak in to try to find out the history of the town and what's happened, and of course, everything else kind of takes place. But in a way, it's kind of like your first film Vincent, Never Hike Alone, where it's just like somebody's just out in the middle of the woods and they kind of happen across Camp Crystal Lake. And what's the situation here? Like just learning, and it'd be a good way to just sort of reconnect the fans or people who maybe don't know the story as much, and then kind of go full out. So in a lot of ways, you sort of did that already, but that's
on a bigger scale. I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like that is a great way to, again, with limited resources, we did it in the podcaster phase. But if it was something that was a little bit more LLC in a way, that you did that at Camp Crystal Lake, you did that sort of formula, that would make a very intriguing film. And especially if you, again, like the way that we did it, like Never Hike Alone, which it's sort of an investigation of things that took place. Right. You know what I mean? What drove people? And it actually reminds me of the ending of Friday the 13th, 2015, where by the end of the movie, the town is actually like, it's a ghost town. You know what I mean? That last event basically sent everybody running, and no one's been back since. And, Nick Cage had a great quote the other day where he says, like, horror movies get to sort of exist in dream worlds because they're very much not tethered down to reality, but they do still maintain balance between the supernatural and real world to make real stakes. And so that's I think, like, in that sense, I think theatrically, I would love to see like Undead Jason. Like, I want to see something that is in that realm where an entity that cannot die that you can do anything to, sort of like the Undead and I like a lot of the things that like James did, and I'm going to throw it off to you right now. I thought James and his team, and one of the things that attracted me to his project when we were first working together was the clever way that he was tying mother and son to Jason to come back from the other world, and their souls both cursed and cursing this land. I thought was a great overarching tone with, like, again, with fan films, if you gave them the feature film budgets that studios get, these ideas would sing even further. But James, tell me more about sort of some of the things you're looking for in a new one.
Well, I kind of like, what Jason was saying, and I've always, I love the lore. So I definitely want the lore to be involved. And we have to touch on Pamela because that's the reason why Jason does what he does, in my opinion. And so that stuff has to be included somehow to where we keep that was diminished as the films, furthered along. We kind of lost touch with Pamela and all of that. So, but I would love to see, like, I love the beginning of the 70s King Kong when, they're at this huge, evil looking fence thing that's barricaded off, Kongland. But I kind of want to see that with Camp Crystal Lake, where it's this, this locked up gate and everything. And, I don't know, just stuff like that, where it's more, it's a buildup before you even get to the camp, build up that tension. And
I think that's a really big part of it. And I think, like you were saying with lore, that they're not only thinking about film one, but they're thinking about additional films to follow and setting themselves up for success and sort of taking the slope. So I don't actually mind that, that other things are sort of going to lead the way. They're going to be able to test the audience a little bit and then be able to say, like, okay, we need to sort of have this ready to hit 3 times in a row, because that's what you want. I mean, look at the success of something like Godzilla -1, where it was a very focused production. They really hit well with the fans. And now there is a hunger for more in that style. That's the sort of reaction that, I mean, like, no matter where they go, that's the reaction I want. I want a landing of a project that gets people invested and they want to see more. And that will just keep spawning more and more content, because we know that the world of comics and things like that are ahead. So before we go on, I just want to bring up a couple of great things. Bringing to life Hell Jason would be really cool. Like, Jason escapes hell. I know, Jason, you would probably love that one, right?
I'm on board 100%. I might be one of very few amount of people.
Ali G checked in with Jason X2, which I actually would love to make. I actually have the pitch would be that Jason lands in the lake and, like, basically is like just a ball of metal, and that's all he is. And he's at the bottom of the lake, but that is, like, filled with now all this radiation, so it pollutes the lake. So they clean the lake using nanobots, and the nanobots find him and reconstruct Jason again. And then he comes back out of the lake and starts raging on Camp Crystal Lake too. Literally, he would land in Camp Crystal Lake. somehow, some way, that you just like lean way into it, go super satire with it, and have it be fun, and have that be some streaming episode or something like that. That'd be
Sure.
fun. Yeah, it said cohesion, just like James said. And then, of course, always hit those like buttons. So moving on. So let's talk about something interesting that kind of popped up. Games. There's a video game going on in the works behind closed doors, correct?
That's
that
right.
hasn't been reported. I just want to make sure it's official.
Yeah, no, that's something that I was actually told before it was told to somebody at a convention by Harry Manfredini that they are working on something. I don't know a whole lot more else about that though, but I wasn't told anything really. They like kind of a hush hush kind of deal. So
yeah. So
was kind of happy that Harry said it so I could actually talk about it.
Well, it's cool that we can sort of confirm that something is coming down the line. Obviously, with Guns, Friday the 13th, the game, which I think all of us were backers in, right?
Yep.
I know we all played it.
I didn't know about it until after the fact.
Yeah, but we got you on there eventually. But I know that was sort of again part of the. I mean, that was like one of the bright spots during the dark times, and then we all of a sudden lost this great thing that we had that we didn't get again. It's kind of a chance, like if you could do it all over again, you know what I mean, with the game right now. I mean, starting from scratch, I thought that Gun came up with a really fun game. Yes. That was fun, running around the sets, getting chased by Jason, getting to be Jason, that sort of like if that aspect just had more investment and thing, I would love to play it. Do we feel like do fans want more of that, or what else kind of game could we get out of Friday the 13th besides running in a circle and jumping over zombies and crows?
Yeah, I think that type of game is the perfect game that all fans wanted to have. It's immersive, and some of the best stuff that Gunn and Elphonic did when they were developing that was really researching the locations. Really creating like this digital footprint of all of the set locations, especially those that don't exist anymore. And I think as longtime fans, we really appreciated it. And I think people who came into that game who weren't fans really of the films at all became fans of the films. It really drew them in, and the interactive part of it was huge. Can they make something better? I'm sure they could. I think the bugs and the hiccups with that game really was its downfall before all the right stuff really started to take place. But fun game, definitely.
Great idea coming in here from. I love this right now, but D's nuts. Yes, we need to bring that. But Alien Isolation, but at Camp Crystal Lake with Jason and Floating Head Pamela. I'm going to throw that in there. I'm going to put that on D's nuts. Comment. I think that's okay. That's a really interesting way to approach it, I think. Did you guys play Alien Isolation? Because it scared the shit out of me. I never finished it. I couldn't get past one part with the alien. I was like, I'm done. Like, I mailed it in.
I never played. No.
Oh, it's pretty intense, and it's very focused on getting from place to place. So it would be a very much like stealthy, trying to you probably got to fix things like that. So that would be interesting.
Dude, I'm still playing Halo 3.
Yeah, right. I'm mostly playing Red Dead Redemption. What would an open world Friday the 13th game look like? You know what I mean? Like you can like
that would have Blair Town.
Yeah, you could go into town. Oh my God, GTA meets Friday the 13th. Because let's face it. Anyone who's a Friday the 13th fan, the first thing they do in GTA is figure out how to build the Jason costume. And they always make it available, which is awesome. There's always a mask that's available. They always give you a jumpsuit so you can at least do a Roy. There's ways to dress it with the green shirt and the brown pants, or like the gray, depending on what look you want to get, the mods that they do and stuff like that. Jason, they always find a way to put Jason in the game, which I totally appreciate. I would love to see an open world Friday the 13th where you're a counselor or you're Jason. You know what I mean? And you have to go to certain things and, you know what I mean? And just do like that and have story, just like Red Dead Redemption or GTA. That would be insane. I wonder if someone would pour that much money into it, though. And how good would a half-baked Friday the 13th open world be? I don't know. That's sort of the thing. It's like how much money is going into the game? Is it a big developer, or is it another indie who's sort of taking charge and trying to do it, the best they can?
Right.
Plus, as Jason, you should be able to, like, the less he kills, the weaker he gets. So that's a weakness for Jason. He needs to kill more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think that obviously, like a lot of the things that you see in gaming that's really popular is being able to get online and play with other people. So,
Yeah.
you know, and some online is where the money is at. I mean, you look at like everything, like obviously everyone buys these games, but the real money turner for these games is the online effect of getting on and competing and people competing with each other. And I think that's what made Friday the 13th the game so good, is because people got to go on, you know, link up with other people and have that sort of, you know, that chat experience, getting online and making the online experience there. I wish they did have more time to develop the, I'm more of a, I don't like being online with other people because I just like, it just gets squeakers and it just gets too much. I don't want to be my friends. I want a good something solo thing I can do off to the side. The bots were a little bit too easy, and then the missions were okay, but they got funky. You know what I mean? Like they had all those bugs, and so I still play it from time to time. But honestly, if it wasn't for the Friday the 13th game, I wouldn't have gotten into Telluride Horror Show. That's how I met Brad McArgue. We were playing a game together. We talked over the stream, and that's how I ended up doing the pitch. But this one's a pretty good one. I want Jason and the Samus. I might see that, you know, crossing into Haddonfield, maybe going to Smith's Grove. I would love, let's see what Mitch says. I'd love to see a period piece set in the 80s that sort of retells parts 2, 3, and 4, but from the perspective of Eli Voorhees and who discovered his son alive, but it's too late to save him. Oh, Mitch. I'm just kidding. Hey, whatever I mean, as long as it's fun to play and you get to play Jason and you can murder people, I think most people will be a thing. But, you know, eventually I'm excited. So I'm excited about news about the games. The other thing I'm excited about that came up recently that is just starting to stir on the convention circuit is this Friday the 13th mega convention that's happening in California. Jason, what's the details on that?
All right. So I had to check into that first before I even posted anything about it. I wanted to make sure it was legit. I got burned on something like that many years ago. You might know what that is, Vincent. I'm not sure, but
I think I got burned on it too. I got burned on something else last year. I was like, I couldn't believe it, but
yeah. But this new convention coming up for 2025, it definitely is legit. It's still in pre-planning right now, meaning they're looking to get a hold of the agents for all of the people that represent the actors and the actresses and the crew people. So nothing else outside of that yet, but the plan is to get as many people from the movies there as possible. I mean, this isn't a half-baked kind of idea. Like they are really pushing to get everybody
like a Star Wars
there.
convention.
Yes. Or even just like what Trancas does with the Halloween movies, their convention where they get everybody there.
Oh yeah.
And that's their plan right now. Outside of that, though, I don't know a whole lot else of what they're going to be doing. I mean, I think they advertised that they were going to be having like a fan film festival there, which is really cool.
I've already emailed them. James, did you email them yet?
No. Well, tell me more.
Well, okay. Yeah. We got to. No, I thought we talked about it. We want to get a booth there.
Oh, is that the one you were? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, we're in. We definitely want to get a booth there. Obviously, it would be amazing to be a part of that event. And I'm really excited. I mean, I did the same thing too. I had to double take. I was like, is this real? This sounds too good to be true, but it makes so much sense. And you think about like the TV show comes out later this year. They're going to have a whole cast of people that they're probably going to bring out from the show. I'm sure Brian Fuller will probably be a part of it. We'll get to have that experience. And that's the thing, like that. I don't really get the sense that Friday the 13th fans understand what is upon us.
Yeah.
It's been so long. And we're about to get like a fire hose of Friday the 13th stuff in our face. And it's going to be war. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like in Mad Max Fury Road when they're all standing under the spigot with their buckets. Like, that's us. And like, you know, whatever that guy's name was, he's going to be like, let them have water.
You're right, though. There's a lot coming. It kills me that I can't say what it all is.
I know you probably know. I mean, some people have told me some things too, and it's fun to sit back and kind of watch to see what's as it sort of develops. But there's lots of things that like even I don't know, and I'm sure that like you have some of the information, but like the shoe needs to drop. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, like it needs to be ready to go. And like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight, was that for the people who follow us, and then, you know, for the people that you brought in and that James brought in too, to know that, like, pay attention and make sure you're following the page, make sure you're checking in. I mean, I remember when Jason, we were talking about this a little bit before, like, I remember when Jason X came out, and it was the first time we ever saw, like, you know, photos hit the web. And I remember going to the website every single day to see if there were going to be new photos. And that feeling again. And like, you watch, you know, we've watched Halloween and Star Wars and Godzilla and all these other, you know, Marvel and DC and all this stuff. All these people have just had sort of been holding court in the discussion of filmography, and Friday the 13th fans have sort of been off in our own little corner. And we've had our chats about, you know, fan films and games and things like that. And the game obviously like got really mainstream. But we didn't get to enjoy it for very long. And so it's nice that, like, Friday the 13th is not even going to come back. It's probably going to be in front of everything, especially if the show is really good. I think we're going to see a dominance in the Friday the 13th world. And this, you know, drought is going to feel like it was a blink of an eye. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's going to be like, Jesus Christ, there's way too much Jason, which I don't know if that's possible, but we may test the limits of it. And I'm all for it. You know what I mean?
You know, it's interesting what you mentioned about the Jason X photos. Ain't It Cool News was the first site to break those photos online back in the late 90s. And that was, like you said, that was like huge. That was such a huge thing. And then like Dark Horizons was around back then still, and they had a bunch of the photos. And that was like super cool. And that's what really that kind of got me online a lot more, and really starting to look at what was going on in films. And it really inspired me to really get into the forums. And then eventually the Friday the 13th forum, that original one. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think we're spoiled now with that. I think nowadays everybody just expects to get those types of photos, but back then you never got that at all.
Oh yeah, now it's part of the campaign almost. Like they leak things on purpose and try to do it. So it's kind of funny. So let me see. There's a couple things that came up in the chat that I wanted to bring up, which were pretty good. Actually, this is a perfect segue for our next topic, which actually not yet. We're not going to quite get there. We're actually going to talk about fan films. Before we get into the big show, there are still fan films going on. Fan films are still being made. I want to say a shout out to the team at Neon Fear, which caught me completely by surprise, because when they first launched their Indiegogo, all they had was AI art, and like it was right when everybody was hating on AI, and we're all sort of like, oh, like, can you sell a film with AI art? Will people trust it? But you know, I follow Brandon, who's like their makeup artist, and he's super passionate about what they're doing. I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff, and it looks fun. You know what I mean? I think Neon Fear has like the same vibe and funness as like Jason X from what I can see. And I think it may end up surprising a lot of people. So have you guys heard of any other fan films coming out there? Or what do you guys think about Neon Fear? What's the word on the street?
I'm on board with you on that. I feel like it's going to be that fun Jason X vibe. You know, as far as a fan film, it's definitely got a unique take for sure. Mm-hmm. That Terminator-esque mix with it. I know there's a couple more that are going on. I can't think of the names of them right now, but there really isn't a lot. They're
in the
there,
chat, definitely. I was going to say, if you're in the chat, if you guys know anybody out there that's put it in the chat, we'll kind of bring it up. But yeah, Jason, have you heard of any? Or
I've seen some stragglers, like probably things that have been made very low key and not really promoted a whole lot. I get like emails every week, and I see a lot of mentions in social media. I haven't been able to get through a lot of the stuff this week, but I did see something pop up. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, Neon Fear looks good. I had the same trepidation at first that you had, where it was like, what is this? Like it looked like it just looked like something that probably wasn't legit at first, but obviously as time has gone on, they've really built up a big following. Their crowdfunding is doing really well and such. But I just want to say one thing about fan films, past fan film, and I don't know if anybody has really watched this one. Here Comes the Night. I love that one. I think that's really good, especially the first one. I love the acting was really good. The twist at the end of that movie was really good. And so if anybody out there hasn't heard of or watched Here Comes the Night, I recommend that one. It's pretty solid.
Definitely. I talked to those guys quite a bit. We checked in and I saw they went part 1, part 2, part 3. I really like, they have a nice look to their films. It has and that's the thing, like, it's always a nice welcome, like when you sit down to a fan film and it has just a nice presentation to it as well.
Yeah.
And so they definitely do bring that. It's very interesting. They take a different approach. They're very, good at what they do. So I would second that. Here Comes the Night is one. James, were there any other fan films that kind of do you think maybe flew under the radar during the time? Because this might be the best time for people to go back and start watching fan films again, because, it's going to fill the space between now and whenever they start, making Crystal Lake and getting episodes into the stream. How about you, James? Any recommendations aside from Jason Rising?
Well, I mean, after Jason Rising, it was, let's get through Never Hike Alone 2.
Yeah.
And so, I being a little bit a part of that, just kind of focusing on that. But, I really hadn't paid much attention, a lot of it, because, when you spend, 3 to 4 years on a project, you're just you're winded. You're just like, holy shit, I got to get through my own campaigns and finish stuff. And then you just want to take a break and you don't want to look at it, and then you go, and then you get 6 months later, you're like, fuck, do I make Jason Rising 2 or what do I do? What am I doing?
Yeah. So you're like, when am I going to make the sequel? When's it coming? Yeah.
Well,
that's fun.
Thank you, Alex.
Oh yeah. Obviously, that was, I was there wrong one side with you for Jason Rising, so I totally get it. And even now, I'm going through it with the fulfillments, and it's not just for most people, they back a campaign, they wait for it to come out. It may take a while, but then it comes out, they get it, and they move on with their lives. And every day after that, we have to continue going to get it ready to get shipped to all the people and do all that stuff. It doesn't. I mean, it's Never Hike Alone 2 isn't over for me. I still have a good 2.5 months of work, to get it all back, which, we're making good progress now that we've kind of got through tax season, and I was able to get all my reports in and do all, because there's a lot of boring work that goes, people look at the films, but they don't realize there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of finances that you got to take care of. There's a lot of things that a lot of intricate details that I can't take a screenshot of all the paperwork that I do because it has all my private information and be like, look at all the work I did this week, all the forms I filled out. You know what I mean? So
you had his name was Jason too, that Dave Brown did, those are passionate fans, putting their films out.
Oh yeah, no, there's that. There was another one. I remember there was one from I think South Africa that was really good, that had it was sort of the niece and nephew, or the nephews of Ginny Steele. But they all had South African accents. But it was actually good. And they did really good camera. It doesn't have the best camera, but good camera work.
Yeah.
That was a fun one.
I remember that. I can't remember the name of it either, but that was good. I like that one. And then I can't remember the name of this one either, but the opening starts in the city and they used all the fonts from the opening of Jason Takes Manhattan in the opening of their film.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, has anyone seen that one out there? Let us know.
Yeah, if anyone remembers the name of that, the opening's really cool. They do the whole thing, and then it transitions back to Camp Crystal Lake.
Was it Victim No More?
I think that's the one. Yes, I think that's what it is.
Oh yeah.
Amy
Steele did a voiceover in that as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good cameos, and it's amazing how the amount of. I think once the alumni kind of got an idea of I can turn this into something, they started flocking to the fan films when they knew the studios haven't been called since the 80s. But I think it's nice. I think a lot of people get to see them out there. Same thing with 13 Fanboy. It got a lot of people together that hadn't been there for a long time, and that was amazing to be a part of. So, I think that was sort of the one little bright spark was fan films bringing people out of retirement and sort of bringing life to characters, because we needed something in the meantime. But so with that, we're going to move on to the next topic, which is the Crystal Lake TV show, which is sort of, I think, it's the thing that's most concrete. We've heard, that everything's moving forward, and that, it's obviously, we know the showrunner is Brian Fuller. We know what he's capable of. We know the level of standard that we have. I mean, it's going to be on Peacock. So you're getting a network level, TV show. The guy who did Hannibal making Friday the 13th. What, Jason, I'll start with you. What is your early anticipation for the series, knowing that, knowing what knowing that it's the first season is focused on Pamela. We know what at least the first season is about, looking back and kind of expanding out. What's your anticipation for the series?
Yeah, I mean, and that also mentioned that A24 is behind this, and they are white hot with everything they make right now. I mean, everything they touch is phenomenal. So that just gives a little bit even more credibility behind what's being done with this. But I'm a big fan of the original film. I think a lot of people overlook the original film in the franchise because it doesn't have Jason as the killer. A lot of people like part 2 more than the original for a lot of different reasons, but I always go back to the original because for me, that's what got me involved. Really, it got me involved in the movies, was the first film. And so, in that regard, I'm really looking forward how they kind of expand upon Mrs. Voorhees as a character. I know a lot of people don't like that when they do that, but I actually am really intrigued by that. And just how, and I'm really hoping that they intertwine that into the town, into Crystal Lake itself, and the different characters that you can introduce in the town along the way, because I think characters are such a huge part of these type of films, just not the death scenes and seeing Jason in the hockey mask. But if you create a movie with or a show in this case, really good characters that you care about, I think it really makes it and elevates it even more. So more with Pamela. I want characters in the town. I want to see how they kind of relate to characters we already know from the films, and just I want to see that in the first season. And then of course, they mentioned that there's going to be, at least I think they've mentioned, fast forward kind of to future stuff going on, and then going back and forth and some of what they're originally trying to write about. So, a lot of people were concerned that you're not going to get Jason for like the first couple seasons, right? That's not the case. You're going to see stuff happening. So, but yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, Jeff Cart wants to see a young, crazy Ralph, and I think that we're all in league for that. Before I jump in, James, let's hear some of your thoughts. And in fact, I have a question. Once we get through yours, I have a question that I'll bring up just for you, James.
As you know, when I started working with Tom McLaughlin on the Diary of Pamela Voorhees, we were diving deep into that sort of stuff, the history of Pamela and that type of thing, kind of jumping back and forth a little bit from present time to the time before, she starts killing people, all that stuff. But, I'm looking forward to this series. I from everything I've heard and seen so far, we need this. We need this thing to come out, and I think it's going to be probably not what people expect. And I think that's what's going to be fun. Is I think it might be a little different than people are putting in their heads, anticipating. Once we see a teaser, I think that's going to raise some eyebrows, and fans are going to be like, okay, this is going to be good. We don't know until we see something, but I have faith.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that like anticipation is high. I think it's, in an unrelated topic, I wonder how the Friday the 13th fandom is going to enter the chat. You know what I mean? Like, we've watched Halloween fans melt down and murder each other. We watched superhero fans melt down and murder each other. We have Snyder Bros and, who's the James Gunnites or whatever. And, people having absolute just like shit fits about everything, Star Wars, everything. So when Friday the 13th starts doing things on TV and starts going into and telling backstory of Pamela, and people don't like it, or somebody puts an agenda in it, it's like, are we going to watch our own, fandom devolve into just nothingness and just be like everything else? Or like, I hope that like there's enough variety, or I'm just hoping that it just hits in that way that like Friday the 13th becomes the new Game of Thrones.
Sure.
It's like, you're going to have your haters because they got in too late and they bet against the horse that won. But everyone who sort of didn't see it coming and was along for the ride. And I think that's what I'm most anticipating, is that people, I heard someone say once, like, learn to trust Brian Fuller. Like, he has an idea for what he's doing. He has a vision. And, you know, what I love about it, and I think this is the first time it's basically ever happening in Friday the 13th history, we're getting a super fan behind an official project, because everyone else who worked on the series, you know, I think, you know, Adam was a fan, but he wasn't allowed to create. We had, you know, studios get in the way. You know, and even if there was a fan like a John Carl Beekler who wanted to do something special, like, he got, you know, his toe was stubbed by the studios. And in this case, from everything we're hearing, you know, Brian is a trusted showrunner. Showrunners run their shows. They're trusted to do that. And there's going to be, and he's also the executive producer. So he's also at the top of the production food chain. So you're going to see someone with a creative vision sort of leading the way for the first time in the franchise history, where it's getting to reinvent itself. And like you, Jason, you know, everything that I've read, you know, his favorite movie is, you know, the first film. And if you ever like come across his accounts anywhere, his icon is him dressed as Pamela Voorhees, which is hilarious. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, no, wait, that can't, no, wait, is that him? It was like, so you see someone who's just as big of a nerd of us for this stuff, which I think is really exciting.
And Adrian, we get Adrian.
So that's the question I want to bring up, because we had a great, I started because he asked a little bit too early. My biggest question for the Crystal Lake series is, what the hell is Adrian King doing? James, why don't you have the most experience with Adrian, since she starred in Jason Rising, reprising her role as Alice. What do you think our old friend Alice could be up to?
Well, as you know, Adrian's always campaigned that she survived, and a lot of it was either hallucination or, you know, the dream sequences that we've seen in Friday the 13th. And you know what? We toyed with that with Jason Rising, kind of retconned it a little bit, did our own thing. And, you know, I love that. We all know that there were reasons why they killed Alice off in the beginning of part 2, which if you took that front scene, it wouldn't have made any difference toward the rest of the film. So you could have eliminated that entirely and not hurt a main character, and they went a different route with it, and so did we. And I think that can play in, you know, she can be Alice, and, you know, maybe as a final girl later on, talking about some past stuff. I don't know what the plan is. I know a lot of people have touched on she may be playing Pamela Voorhees and whatnot. You know,
that would be interesting. I think that's something, probably a guess that a lot of people were making. I mean, I think that crossed my mind. It's at least a thought that crosses your mind, because I know if anybody would have approved that, it would have been Betsy, because I know they became very close in the later years. And, you know, I think Betsy even said,
she impersonated her a little bit too.
Yeah, and she had, I mean, like, Adrian's a fantastic. How about you, Jason? What's your as far as Adrian's involvement? I don't know if you know, so you have to like skew around, but what do you think as far as like what she's going to be up to?
Yeah, I think she's going to have a pretty good involvement in the show.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I mean, I think, you know, what you said, sort of the jumping back and forth in time. If that's the case, maybe that's a bit. I mean, I'm getting, you know, what I'm getting here is like a little bit of It vibes, like that separation of time that far, like coming back like almost 30 years type thing, or 20 or whatever it is, like 20 is it 23 years in It. That if they are doing that, and they do sort of take a Jason Rising approach, not that they're taking the approach from you, I'm sure Brian has his own ideas and has for a long time, but in that sort of vein, that like fans are going to have to like accept that, you know what I mean? So like you face some from like, and that's what's so interesting, is that when you do certain things with a franchise, you're going to upset different. There's no way. It's like whack-a-mole. You get one problem solved, it's going to piss off another set of fans. Yeah. That problem pops up another fan. So like, James, you definitely what was some of the feedback you got by having Alice return? You know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's typical when people are hardcore. They're like, but she died, and we've got pictures of her in the cabin, and, you know, with the ice pick and all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, but don't we love Alice? I mean, as fans, don't we love that character so much? Why don't we want to be excited to be able to bring her back in some form and just kind of look away for a minute from that result that they did in part 2? It's okay. We can play with this stuff. I mean, look how many Spider-Mans we've had, and all the different things that, you know, different films change. It's okay to, you know, I mean, again, we made a fan film. We brought Pamela Voorhees back from the dead as a headless walking corpse. We had fun with it. You know, we had
By
fun
the
with
way, I
it.
love that part of your film. It's so cool.
Thanks, man. We love that stuff, you know.
It went like batshit crazy at that point, and I was here for it. I loved it.
That
Well, and
I
that
remember that I saw the
you know,
first
that's the
trailer and
evil.
like that's what drew me in. Yeah.
Well, and that's the the little bit that Adam put in for with the Evil Dead touch. So we included it. I'm a huge Evil Dead fan as well, and I'm like, it works. It works to bring her back and utilize that in some fashion. I didn't want to over push the Evil Dead thing, but I love the tone of Evil Dead, and that's what I included mostly. But yeah, I mean, why not add this creepy type Evil Dead feel with Pamela Voorhees? It just makes it, I don't know, just makes it a fun horror film.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. I think that you have that aspect of it. Obviously, Jason's going to come down the line and the story to tell with him. I think that that's going to be another huge aspect of the show, as far as how is Jason handled, and really connecting his storyline through multiple seasons. And so we're going to have to go through those events of like, is Jason going to die at the end of the season? Is Jason going to survive the end of seasons? Is it going to be mysteries, cliffhangers, all this stuff? I think it's going to be a very interesting sort of portrayal, because whichever direction they go, they're going to have to walk that line. If they keep him human, that's going to be a challenge. But I think that there's a lot of fans who welcome that challenge. They want to see that version of Jason. They hear Undead Jason and they think Tom McLaughlin and they think Alice Cooper and they think, well, that's the original boomer sort of like, well, that's when it went all pussy and it was not Friday the 13th anymore. Not even any boobs in the movie. Like that's like there's a crowd that's like it's Friday, it's final chapter or bust before. So, which is a lot of like the old heads, I think, of Friday the 13th. A lot of fans kind of come from that camp. So if we end up getting that style of Jason, and it's something I've always wanted to see, it's like, explain it. Like, where did he go? How did he survive those wounds? What is it that's keeping him going? But it's going to be fun to watch them cleverly work their ways around that and see how it ties into that whole sort of world and who Jason is. Plus, like, there's that side of it, story, but there's also the look. I'm really interested in the look, because for me, it's the make or break. It will, like, if they have the best story in the world, if Jason walks out and looks like a doofus or just doesn't look good, if he looks like the new Crow, like, it's like, oh my God, they're going to have to Sonic the Hedgehog this show. Like, what are we going to do?
Machine Gun Draven.
What are you guys looking for? Like, Jason is obviously going to come back. We're probably going to get Sackhead, of course. We're probably going to get then we're going to get introduction to a new hockey mask. What is, what do you want to see? What do you not want to see?
I'm kind of hoping that and this is where I kind of go, like, I want to see something new. I almost don't, I'm hoping they do, and this might kill the show, but I'm hoping they do a new mask, like something completely not expected, but something that maybe is similar to a hockey mask, but it's not. But if they can pull it off the right way, I would love to see that. I hope they don't bring the sack back.
Okay.
I hope they don't do that, because I think now it's been done so much between the 2009 movie, all of the fan films, all the great fan films have used it. I'd like to see something different, honestly, but you got to get rid of the jacket. Jacket's got to go. We got to get back to, the green, what is it, a Dickies shirt or whatever.
It's the Sears workman shirt.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And like, it doesn't have to be that necessarily, but let's see if we can get back to maybe that a little bit, at least for part of the show. Maybe he gets a jacket later, who knows? But
what if he shows up in overalls?
See, here's the thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not the biggest fan of part 2. Just saying. And I'm not a big fan of that look either, all around. So if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to be upset with it, but I hope they don't go that route.
Yeah, James, what are your likes and dislikes of what you want to see in a new Jason out there?
I think I agree with we need a modern take on the mask, something unique. You know, that's one of the things that I think we touched on with the 3D script. It has sort of a blank, you know, no chevron type of look, something unique like that. I think one of the things that is going to be really important to this series is the casting. I think that's what's going to really, I mean, obviously Brian's worked with great people such as Mads Mikkelsen, and, you know, what a great actor that guy is.
Mads is a Steve Christie. You will get the kids inside, inside the cabins.
But can you imagine him as if they did do this father thing as a Elias?
He was Elias. He would make a great Elias. If I was going to pick an Elias, it would be him. Yeah.
But you know, the casting I think is really going to, you know, come into play here on how this translates. But you know, I'm not against changing the attire necessarily, but it has to. You can have something new, but just attach it to the old. Just have that feel of the old.
Well, I mean, that's definitely the approach that I took with Never Hike Alone 2. I was trying to attach the new look to the old look in a way that felt like it was cross-generational, like he could grow into that. Like the jacket we used was really sort of me trying to take, you know, at first I just opened up like a Dickie shirt and I went, it just needs a little bit more weight. And then we found that M65 jacket and sort of tore all the thing out of it to make it slim down. So it was just like a heavier fabric of the shirt. And I think that's what sort of worked in between. Same thing with the mask, sort of like taking the mask and doing something different with it, taking the chevrons off, giving it a more sort of, you know, aged look, like it had been out there for a while. But it seems like this, I mean, he's going to have to go through a progression. Either it's going to be stuff that was left in the camp, or it's going to be a character bringing it. So it's going to be a new mask to an old mask, and maybe seeing it sort of, I mean, I'd like that aspect. If they can sort of like, the mask has that life where like each season it's changing because he's getting different damage and different things are happening to it and things are hitting his face. And, you know, maybe there's one season it's like a shotgun blast that almost takes off his face and, you know, different things like that. But I'm definitely in the boat with both of you guys. I want to see it simplified, you know, and I want to keep it simple, not be over the top.
But you can also flash back similar to what they did with the Halloween movies, where you can see a Ted White look in some sort of flashback scenario where you get some of that actual old original Friday Jason look, you know, and play with that. And then, you know, add in your new modern mask somehow later on. But
totally. I mean, that's going to be, I hope that like, that's another thing that everything in the, like, that's one of the things I didn't like about 2009 was like the mask didn't really have a story. It was just somewhere in an attic. He found it and life went on. It's like, it's going to be fun to maybe see that thing. Like if they're going to show a young Jason, if he gets that mask from camp, that like you see it early in an episode as just part of the equipment. And we don't know that it's going to become that thing. Like I want to see those types of breadcrumbs laid out. You know, as far as, you know, Jason doing that thing, as far as his look and things like that, I think overalls would upset me too. I love part 2, but I don't want to see him in overalls. But I have seen some intricate 1/6 scale figures that sort of have different variations of Jason. There's like, I think it's like Outbreak Jason, I think has sort of a costume like that, where it's the overalls one undone and he has a flannel shirt, kind of like what you're wearing right now, Jason. I think it's like brown and black or orange and black. And there's certain looks there that are kind of cool, a little bit more Mountain Man, but that makes me think of Madman Mart's sort of type thing. And with Jason, you really want to avoid him looking like anyone else. Everyone else has been trying to look like Jason for years. It works. So go back to the simplification. Just add that extra layer of, you know, you're going to have a whole design team that's on this to really kind of like make it intricate, make it nice, and, you know, make it really fit for the character. You know, as far as that goes, and one cool thing, since this is going to be on streaming, we're going to get kill scenes. And it's kill scenes for a TV show, which, you know, if you watch Game of Thrones or if you watch, you know, any of these films, I mean, they're brutally beheading people and cutting people into pieces. So it's not like violent, like we have better violence on TV than we did in the films back in the 80s. So Friday the 13th has always been an industry leader, if you would say, in leading the charge in what effects does. I'm really interested to see like the effects teams that they hire. the types of gags that they're going to do. How crazy with kills do you think they're going to go? Do you think they're going to feel like the not the challenge, but sort of like the need to go and be like, no, we got to go and we got to be out in front of this and do big stuff? What do you guys think? James, why don't you go first this time, just because we'll flip the order.
Well, it's, we did hear the rumor of Tom Savini now being involved somehow.
Really?
What
I didn't
he's
hear
going
that
to do? Oh,
Really?
I know that they had touched on it somewhat.
Every time somebody says, Jason just like goes, I can't say it.
Well, I mean, that's what I heard. I'm not gonna lie.
I think he put I think on Instagram a year or so ago they took a picture together. He posted it on Instagram.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think Harry is going to have involvement with it too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Heard that.
Okay.
As well. Yeah.
I think the idea is they're bringing in another composer to work in tandem with him. So they're going to have him do music in some capacity and then have a new composer come in and put their spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there you go. That's a hint with a modern score and a Manfredini score, kind of a jump back and forth from current time to past.
That's really, really interesting. I didn't even know that. Let me see. I'm just looking at some of these comments that are coming in. Hey guys, what's going on? But no, that's really interesting. I think that but as far as kills go, I mean, if Savini evolves, that's great, because we know that he's obviously going to do some interesting things and bring his level. And he's obviously, this is, I mean, again, like I always talk about the lawsuit, I'm always like, yeah, I know Sean and Victor, but what about all the other people that actually really made Friday the 13th? Because without Tom Savini, there is no Friday the 13th. It doesn't blow up to what it's going to be. There's no beheading of Pamela Voorhees. He's the one who figured that out and got that and sort of shocked audiences there. So I wonder if that would be sort of like, if Tom is involved, or if they're bringing in whatever, for him, that would be sort of a swan song type thing. Be like, I'm back to where I started, but I'm bigger and better than ever. So let's go out and do it. It'd be great if he, brought Nora Hewitt along. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the students, and he obviously did a lot of great work for us. Definitely shout out to Kelsey Burke too, and the company that she works with, and all those people out there. I would love to, it's going to be interesting to see, because I've got to know quite a few effects people out in the world, that are working on all the big stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see who ends up going there. It's going to be a really nice sort of, I think, all this opportunity for effects artists out there to go out and work on this film or on this TV show. It's going to be great. It's going to be interesting. I wonder how they're going to break up the kills. You know what I mean? Because it's not like, like Sean's old formula, which was every 5 minutes somebody had to die or show their boobs. That was the thing. So the TV show can have people dying and showing boobs every 5 minutes. Are we going to get one kill per episode? Are we going to get multiple kills in a couple of episodes and no kills in some episodes? How do you think that's going to flow? Oh, and Jason, you never really even went with.
That's no problem. That's all right. Yeah, I mean, outside of Jason, the bread and butter of these films to this point are the kills, right? I mean, that's what most people go to these movies to see. So I don't think they're going to skimp on that at all. And kind of like what you were saying too is, what a tremendous opportunity for a number of effects artists and companies to maybe be brought in, not just to work on the show, but maybe in an episodic nature. Maybe they have collaborations between different effects companies and such, where they kind of put their own spin on, much like they bring different directors in for different episodes too. They put their own stamp on what they're making, essentially, for that mini movie almost. And so yeah, I think the kills are going to be there. I think they're going to be probably over the top in some cases, because that's our best kills are over the top, right? So looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you actually reminded me of something I forgot to bring up before about changing the mask on Jason. I actually got to see some of the some of the development work for Friday the 13th, 2017. I met the artist who did the pitch book for KNB, who was going to do the effects for that movie, and I got to see they were going to use this plastic medical mask that Jason wore as a child, because he had a big hair lip. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty nasty. It was pretty cool. I don't know if those that artwork is ever going to hit the open stream. It would be kind of cool to see some of this stuff start to come out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like the CW TV show that never happened. I found all that stuff somewhere. I can't remember anymore. And someone pointed me in a direction of those photos, and it's awesome. Like, just to see what they were doing. I mean, in that TV show, they were very far along. I mean, they had made a lot of stuff for that show, and it's surprising that they axed that one when they did, because I thought they were close on that one too.
Well, I think they definitely had, like, they bet the farm on that one. They thought that they were going to show. They went and did all those different versions of Jason, which oddly looked like, when they make the live action Simpsons characters, when they do that type of old, he sort of looked like a live action Simpsons character, or like like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. It was a very odd look. I'm sort of like, but I want to say that Doug Tate did. They based that off of Doug Tate's sculpt, because I think I recognized his face in some of the work.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And I know that Sean was going a very interesting direction. I'm actually, if you think back to it, I remember Sean was saying that, like, it was going to be a Scream type world where there was like a movie version of Friday the 13th, and then there was like the real thing. And the real thing was way different than what the movie said. The movie was all bullshit. And this is the real story of Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Did you know any more of those details? What was it with that show?
Yeah, that was that you're spot on. It was basically going to be, they're in Crystal Lake, and all the real teenagers, the real characters, and this whole thing with the films that had been going for years, and everyone in town is like, we're tired of this. People come to our town because now we're like a tourist attraction, and all that stuff's going on. But then it really starts to happen in the town. And there's all these secrets and of the town, and the characters that kind of come to the forefront. Like you said, very much Scream-esque, in that respect.
Yeah, I remember that was an odd one. The mask looked pretty weird for that one too. I remember it was broken. I remember it had like cracks in it. I don't know if I saw the right mask. And the machete, the machete had it was one of those. It kind of was a mix of, I think, Freddy versus Jason, but it had the serrated back edge. I remember that was one of the things they were doing with that too. And again, like, like I said, this was before Never Hike Alone, when we were doing this stuff. And I, even before that stuff, I was trying to like hunt down anything I could, because at the time I was trying to get on the productions, you know what I mean? So it was like, I was just trying to find contacts and all that fun stuff. But it's pretty insane to see now that, like, you think back to like hearing about them going through the process of like them almost going to fruition. Like, it got real close with CW, it got real close with the 2017 movie, and then just one thing kicked it off the development thing. And then it's been so secret-lived. So it's nice to have, Crystal Lake to look forward to. It's interesting that it ended up on Peacock of all places. It ended up with A24, and I think that this is kind of the time that, like, it's interesting. It's just an interesting time with the series. I'm glad that there's some life coming back into it. And I think that, the fandom's ready for it. I think, we've covered basically all the bases of that stuff. Are there any kind of final thoughts on the TV show that you're looking forward to, you want to say about it before we sort of go directly to some Q&A for questions, and then we'll kind of wrap it up and call it a night?
I'm looking forward to getting something different to talk about on my site.
A couple new forum posts. Yeah. So maybe that's a good segue into how is Friday the 13th franchise.com positioning itself to sort of handle this now influx of thing, post, are you going to be, what's his face? Like the Talking Dead? Like what do we got? What type of plans what are we doing out here? Are we getting ready for this?
Yeah. So, okay. So a couple things. There is a message forum that's attached to my site. So in that forum right now, there is a Crystal Lake section for the series, and I will be putting sub forums in there for each episode. So we'll have that going on. And then on the website itself, I'm actually in the process of getting a section ready to where once they actually announce episodes, we can have that on the site as well. There's going to be a podcast, of course. We're going to get that rolling along. And I tested the waters a little bit on Twitter last summer talked to you and a few other people last summer in Twitter Spaces, because I really like that kind of format. I think it's good. But of course, things have changed on that platform since last summer. And now people who are not signed up or logged in, they can no longer listen to those. And that wasn't the case when I started it. So that kind of axed that idea. But we will be getting some podcast hosting set up, and we'll definitely going to go that direction. So I'll have all that ready to go. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Chris Hardwork, Alley Girl, she hit the nail on the head. There we go. You're gonna be the Chris Hardwork. I would say one of the commenters did mention Discord, which is kind of the wave of the future. You know what I mean? Like, have you thought about doing anything in that space, or kind of bringing it to YouTube or something like that?
So
I know we're all like kind of just beyond that generation. So
I'm
we look at it like, how the fuck does this work?
You know this, like with podcasting, doing video stuff, to stay relevant and to keep your audience engaged, you have to be consistent, right? You have to always be consistent, weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly, however you want to do it. And, over the years with me, it's been difficult to be able to set up times in the production part of it and edit and all that good stuff. So I've kind of stayed away from that through the years, just because it's easier for me to write long form when I'm ready to go on the site and kind of publish that way. But Discord is definitely the way to go. You see this with entertainment journalists now who are just doing their newsletters. Everyone's telling them, get on YouTube, get on this and that, get video going, and they're all doing it. So it's definitely on the table. It's a matter of figuring it out. Like you said, we're a little past all that. So
yeah. I feel you, because it's like that's where people are sort of like, I've noticed that Friday the 13th fans, not so much Friday the 13th fans, but fans in general are more apt to sort of get on a stream of somebody talking about it and just rip it out in real time than get on the message boards and want to go back and forth and have like back in the day, there's like dissertations of like, well, I just went back and I watched the playthrough, so I analyzed this thing, and like you had like video evidence and like things, and like, I remember I was pulling things into Photoshop and circling stuff and being like, did anyone notice this? And like, we don't get that anymore. It's like this. It's like a hot back and forth. People jumping in the comments, saying what they want to do. That I don't know if I should. I just remembered something, but sort of that. That engaging back and forth. I think what's nice is that you obviously have the incentive to sort of, now that once they announce shows, once you have actually air dates, you can look at it and say like, okay, so now if it's playing every Friday night, I know that I'm going to have my content out by then. It's sort of a motivator, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm dying laughing at the Tommy Wiseau thing in the chat right here.
We have some good comments coming in.
I like. Hey, that's a great idea. That would bring people to watch that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's when they start doing the anthology season, when they run out of ideas, like horror stories, and they just shipped it.
Hey, he already did his shark movie, so
Definitely. I haven't seen it yet. Have you?
I haven't seen it. No, I won't watch that.
It's so funny. How about you, James? What's going to be your ritual? Are you just going to be a habitual watcher and jump on some streams with us and talk? Are you ready to kind of start talking about that stuff again? How did you do forums, or were you just sort of like always just talking about it?
Just talking about it. I see the news, Friday 13th franchise.com.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out if you haven't.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm pimping you, Jason.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take what I can get. I don't usually promote on my personal stuff all of that very often, just because my family always gives me a hard time about it. So
you have to be like, listen, we do this right. Like we're gonna be the next Dead Meat talking about.
There you go. Right. Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I think Friday the 13th franchise can be the next Talking Dead. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You already have a good familiarity with everybody in the community that exists there. So there's lots of, being able to bring on alumni and people that we know from the franchise who are going to want to come on and talk about it. And then I'm sure that like some of the creators of the show probably aren't like too far away either. So I think it's going to be nice to see them getting engaged with the fans eventually down the road. I think that's definitely a possibility. And I know that we'll try to get some stuff going here. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like, that's interesting. I think if any backers want to help give me a lesson on Discord, I think it might be the Womp Stomp brand to get over there and maybe, host some stuff so people can get in. Because I know as far as like this channel goes and what we've been doing, obviously I've been doing this a little bit more regularly since I've had a chance to take a breath from Never Hike Alone. And we had a good run of it back in the day doing interviews, but this has become kind of like an a la carte show. Like last week we did, a table read. The week before that, we talked about I can't remember what I talked about. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we talked about 2009 and sort of dove in on that and like the history of it and things like there. And so obviously, because the algorithm for Womp Films is built into Friday the 13th, it just sort of makes sense for me to keep talking about it and bringing things up. And that's why I kind of started this going now too, anticipating that like, well, if the show is going to be this year, you know, we should definitely get going and talk about it. So I definitely need to update that. I don't know if the show will stay here, if we'll go to other places, become subscription based, but you know, it's going to be nice when the fandom sort of has something to talk about, new things to talk about, and as those other kind of subjects coming up, which would be really, really nice. So I'm going to throw it out to the chat real quick. Are there any last minute, you know, questions or anything that you guys want to ask us, Jason or James, about either Jason Rising, Friday the 13th franchise.com, Never Hike Alone 2, or Crystal Lake Games? Anything? Is there anything out there as far as that? Allie girl, you're gonna make me want to get more accounts and passwords. We're gonna have to get all that stuff out there. When will Womp Films start a Rumble channel? It could be another revenue stream for the Ghost Files. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I that's the thing. Like, I think that post Never Hike Alone, I definitely have looked at where does Womp Films go from here? What can we do? We obviously want to do original stuff. So we're working with some people behind the scenes that we want to create original content for. It's just going to be a matter of, you know, there's short content, which has its own avenue. Obviously, like there's Quibi died. So I don't know how true that is. But you see that somebody who did like a Quibi show got all their rights back and put the whole thing back together and sold it as an actual TV show.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Oh, here we go. Joe has a question, but he said, I have a question, but what's he doing there? Oh, Allie Girl has the best question. When will there be a Jason Rising Part 2?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I mean, there have been starting pages of a script, and we've, you know, Vinny and I have discussed it many times, and we've talked about, you know, a couple of different options, like instead of Jason Rising Part 2, Pamela Rising, sort of going back a little bit and touching there. And, you know, honestly, I don't know. It's been tough because with this series coming out, it's, you know, including Alice, schedule wise, it just might be a weird time.
Yeah, I think because also I remember is a big part of those plans. Obviously,
Right.
We want to continue that storyline. You know, obviously, if she has the head, well, where does it go from there?
If the story's right and the time is right, then we'll do it. But
the funding is right.
Right.
And so no one's left in a hole, and you can kind of get it done the right way. I think that became like the big thing with fan films afterwards. It's like the vision gets bigger and bigger, and you got to start getting the support to really kind of hammer it home. And luckily, people have been doing that. But, you know, to do it again, like, I think we've all gone through the experience of, we get it to a certain place and then you have to put your own money into it because you want it to be good. And then you walk away from the experience like, okay, I'm glad I did that. It's better, but I also now have to make all this money back. And you got to go and work and do that. But I think, you know, in the end, it's been worth it because the experiences have been, you know, you can't really buy those. So
yeah. It's a tough gig. It's a tough gig trying to raise all that money. And, you know, kudos to you for all the times you've been crowdfunding for Never Hike Alone. And that's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, we still have one more that we're going to do because we're going to do the final cut. We want, you know, people have been asking for that since the start. You know, putting all the films together as one big presentation and just doing a little bit of a polish on it. That's going to launch sometime this summer. We're going to partner with Kickstarter on it. Kickstarter has asked us to come back. I had a really good meeting with someone, had to talk with someone over at Kickstarter Film, and they just have more going on over there than Indiegogo. And Indiegogo's just sort of let their film division sort of run itself, which has been fine, but it, you know, there could be a little bit more kind of backing from the company. And I really haven't felt that in the last couple of years. Like, we've been doing all this business for them and they could really give a shit. And it was like, you know, Kickstarter was like, you know, we'd love to have you back. So, you know, I got to go through another round of that, but it will be much easier because there isn't much of a film to do. There's some polish to do in post and everything's already in the computer. You've already cut the films. So it's nice that it's not going to be as big of a thing, obviously the shipping, but that will be a little bit more streamlined and like closer. But reminds me that they, you know, for those of you at the update today, the Never Hike Alone 2 campaign is closing March 31st. That's a close on credit fixes. That's a close on pre-ordering Blu-rays, posters, anything like that. So if you haven't ordered anything yet, or if you know people that are interested and they haven't seen the film, show it to them, have them put in their orders now, because after this, a lot of the things that we're offering through this campaign will never be available again. Everything we do in the next campaign is going to be super simple. I want to offer as little as possible because I just want to make it simple and really just want to get people what they want, pay off some extra bills that I have left over from Never Hike Alone 2, and move on with my career and go make some original stuff, which would be really, really nice. Let me see
some official stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be great to work on some official stuff, but I think, I don't know, we'll see over time. I have to do some work in the original. I think I have to do a work in original space before I can even go to official stuff, which is why I got to get working on that. Let me see. Joe Gallo says, seriously, though, I've been a big fan of Jason for so many years. Love James, and obviously Vince will break my legs. Thank you very much. Y'all been great. Our running joke.
Hi, Joe. We love you, Joe.
To all my 80s babies, did you ever grow up catching or watching Friday the 13th as a kid and get scolded because there was some nudity on screen? Yeah, definitely. I got in trouble. My parents would always walk in at that part. It was like inevitable.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Oh yeah. When I was younger, my mom told the local video store across the street, he can rent anything he wants. Let him just rent whatever. And I'm like, excellent. So I go over there and I start grabbing movies. And I had the final chapter one time, and I'd already watched it again, for like the 20th time. And she must have got curious what movies I was watching. So she popped it in there and saw the Judy Aronson scene where they're doing the skinny dipping. And so I got home and she's like, what are you watching? And, all that kind of good stuff. And then, of course, like you'd go to a friend's house and he'd be like, hey, look what I got. And you pop it in there. And then, the scene from a New Beginning, in the woods and all that stuff. So, absolutely.
No, my mom didn't give a shit.
Like, what are you watching?
She didn't care. But I will say that,
she lit a match on your head to light her cigarette.
Yeah, no,
no.
Whatever. She didn't care. But most of the time they weren't around anyway. It was like, that was I just got home from school, pastime was throw in the final chapter or something on the VHS and watch that before parents got home anyway. So, but I remember there was one time where, my buddy of mine would hang out for the night and we'd go to the video store and usually rent a Friday the 13th or some horror movie. And I remember we wanted to watch Trick or Treat, and we rented Trick or Treat, and we got back and it was Trick or Treat the porno. It was the wrong tape. And you see two young kids with their eyes just like, holy shit. It was kind of funny.
That's pretty funny. All right.
This is not mom's Trick or Treat.
You're right. We have a watcher who's excited to see Tom Matthews at the upcoming Crypticon in Kansas City. Are you planning on doing any convention appearances soon? Yes. I will be at the Colorado Festival of Horror this September 13th through the 15th. I will be playing Never Hike Alone, the final cut there. It's where we're going to debut it. It's a Friday the 13th of September, so that's going to be very exciting. What else are we doing here? We're going to be at the New Bedford Film Festival in a couple of weeks in New Bedford, April 18th through the 21st. Never Hiking will be playing in South Coast, Massachusetts. It will also be a part of Panic Fest, which is April 13th through it's through like the 10th through the 19th. But coming up, Panic Fest, Never Hike Alone is going to be a part of the virtual fest. It's a really cool interface that you go and you walk around and meet with other people. I will try to be in there as much as possible, interacting with fans on that cool thing. So definitely check that out. Check out panicfest.com. And for wompstompfilms, Bath Bomb will be doing its world premiere at Panic Fest as a part of Shorts Block #1 on April, I believe, 5th at 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon in Theater 2. So definitely check that out. We're going to be doing updates on the social media stuff, announcing all this stuff over the next couple of weeks, so everybody knows what's going there. But let me see. Let's see what Jordan's got over here for us. But for real, I know we joke around about breaking each other's legs, but you guys really are the best, and I wish you all the best of your luck, careers, and success. Thank you, Jordan. And yes, we will do your 2009 remake fan film that we got to do. My parents would watch horror films with me and my siblings. They had a friend who owned a TV VCR repair place who would pirate movies and give them to us. We watched so many pirate horror. That's a pretty good. You got a pretty good deal there. Yeah, my parents used to let me run whenever I wanted. We go to Silver Screen Video, and I'd be coming home with like Puppet Master and like demonic toys and all like the Anchor Bay stuff. a lot of stuff like that. So that's the way I kind of caught it. But Friday the 13th definitely had all that stuff. Yana checking in. Yana, who did our Russian subtitles, actually. Mitch, I watch all the horrors with my parents: Hellraiser, Elm Street, Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. Update on subtitles. We have Dutch, Portuguese, Italian, French, Spanish, and English. And then maybe one more that I'm missing. But we're doing really well on subtitles. So if you want to catch Never Hike Alone 2 on YouTube, the subtitles are coming in. You can watch it in many, many languages. I'm having a brain fart, but we'll Bath Bomb release on the YouTube channel. Probably not our YouTube channel. It's actually probably going to go much above our YouTube channel. I think it's actually going to get a real release on some type of channel. So definitely keep an eye on that. And if you backed Bath Bomb, keep an eye out for updates. Colin will update everybody and do that. So I think with that, we're going to call it a night this Friday. Jason, James, thank you for joining me this week on the Ghost Files. Anything you want to plug before we go?
Well, this Sunday.
That's right.
Sorry, Jason.
No.
You're not going to like this. We're reshooting and kind of doing a modern take of the part 2 campfire scene, the Paul Holt monologue.
Okay.
So we're gonna reshoot that and kind of do. I'll be doing the monologue, but yeah, we're just doing it for funsies, and we're gonna have Dan Kyle back in Jason garb, and it'll be fun. Be a fun little.
Yeah, Karl will be back shooting it, right?
Yeah, Karl will be there Sunday shooting with me, and it'll be a fun. And the people, the campers, our counselors around the campfire are going to be the cast of Jason Rising. So it'll be fun.
That's cool. No, the campfire scene is iconic. I have no problem with that scene whatsoever. I have no problem really with part 2 in general, but I have my reasons. I have some disdain for it, but that sounds really great. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it'll be a good time. I mean, that scene is just so iconic. You know, it's just it's part of the lore, and I love the lore.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you, Jason? What else you got coming up? Or anything in your horizon? What do you got going on?
So yeah, everything is kind of, as we mentioned before, kind of status quo right now with the site and all that. I just want to echo what you mentioned earlier, that there's a lot of big things coming, a lot of big things, and
do tell.
You know, I'm very excited about it, and it's difficult each day and each week that passes by that there isn't anything announced officially yet, because once that hits, it's going to snowball, and you're going to hear more and more things that are happening. And for me personally, you know, I'm really hoping this gets announced soon, because it's killing me.
Yeah, that's how I felt when we had Tom. I was like, I want to say it, but I can't. I got to let people enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I feel you, man. But that's great. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing what the franchise website has in store. I'm definitely going to have my eyes glued. And James, you know, I'm going to be talking to you guys all weekend while you're working on that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the updates. And once you're ready to share it, you know, we'll echo it out. But without any further ado, I'd like to thank everybody for checking in this week. This has been episode 12 of Ghost Files Live. It's been fun. We talked about Friday the 13th, what's in the future. We're obviously excited for it. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button, leave comments, share it with your friends and family, tell them about Never Hike Alone, tell them about the Indiegogo, tell them about it all, and spread the word so we can keep Friday the 13th fandom going. Make sure you're checking in Friday the 13th franchise.com. Make sure to check out Jason Rising, which is in the wompstompfilms page if you need help finding it. It's also at, what is it, Red Crow or Jason Rising's own YouTube?
Yeah, it's got its own YouTube, Jason Rising.
So it has its own YouTube. Definitely check it out there. Check out other fan films, some of the ones we mentioned earlier on in the podcast. Here Comes the Night. Here Comes, what was his name? His name was Jason, named after the other thing as well. But it was good to have everybody there. Thank you for checking in. We'll see you next week. I'll have to come up with something fun for us to do. Keep an eye on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the website for updates on what we'll be doing. But until then, have a good one, and we'll